Welcome to the UnStruktured podcast. In this episode, my co-host Bob Smith and I talk with three young artists shaping music today. Musician and studio founder Harun Bonnett, artist and performer Lake Kyle, and producer and mix engineer Juan Hernandez. From growing up in the underground music scene to studying at Juilliard, Berklee, and the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, to working with major TV shows like Voz Mexico, sharing the stage with legends like Stevie Wonder, and touring with the influential ska group, The English Beat. We talk with this next generation of creators about hustling in the music industry today, the value of networking and community building, and the importance of simply showing up. I'm Michelle Rose, and this is UnStruktured.
Hello, Juan Carlos.
We are recording.
So good to see everyone.
Good to see you
too.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good, Lake.
Hey,
how
I'm
are
Bob.
you?
I'm doing
Nice
well.
to meet you.
Well,
Yeah, Bob, you haven't met everybody. Hi, Harun.
No, but then we crossed orbits at NAMM, but I didn't get to see JC. And
I know.
no,
Wow, I
that
can't
was really
believe
sad.
that.
I know, me too. Yeah, same.
yeah, it was insane. It was insane. I know I saw you guys, but
Mhm.
by the time I looked at my watch, I was like, "Oh, we got to go perform."
No, it was nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and then Lanice hijacked me for like dinner, so like I was like, so she goes, "We gotta go see John Baptiste," and I'm starving. I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
is that what you guys did? You guys
Yeah.
went to go see John Baptiste. Nice. How was that?
It was great.
Yeah, I'm
Nice.
sure.
He's
That was
amazing
awesome.
performer.
I
Well, you
wish
know-
I was able to see him, but I wasn't able. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was too many things layered up. Like Lake, you were performing right at like the same time, and
Yeah.
everything was too layered up. There was so much going on. We lost Harun. He disappeared.
I'm right
Yeah.
here.
Back. There he is.
And that just shows how much was going on at NAMM,
Yeah.
and how many excellent things there were to see. And I was amazed at how many people I knew who were talking and performing and doing things, but I couldn't get
Totally.
to everybody's stuff. So I hope you guys had a good time.
I really had a good time. It was amazing. It
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Nice.
And how was the performance, Lake? Harun, were you on stage with him?
I was.
I
Oh,
saw
nice.
it in the photo.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was. It was great. Well, depending on which performance you're talking about.
I don't know. I saw a photo of Lake's performance and you were in the background. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but I just saw some NAMM photos and stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
I had
we
to
did-
say I had to say this because I was there. I was in
Okay.
one of the performances of them. They were amazing. That's the only one where I can use. Yeah.
Damn. I'm sorry I missed it.
what'd you say,
No.
Lake?
I said I appreciate that. Yeah, we had a great time. Little discrepancies happened, but outside of that, like we went there and had a great time. We did the Ultimate Ear stage. That was fun. Big shout outs to them. And then we got to do something, like NAMM after party at the Anaheim Hotel. So it was sick to get on there and be with the guys,
Nice.
and just, be sharp, continuously being sharp. So it's
Yeah,
What's up?
awesome. I want to talk more about all of that community. But the first thing I want to do is I want to do it's just a quick, like that quick introduction of who you are. And because some of you, like JC, Bob. And
Yes.
Bob has been on Karen's group, but he's been a little sporadic. So you may not know Lake or Harun. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've never met Lake or Harun, but I like Lanice talks effusively about you, Harun, and I like, but I suspect that's maybe Lanice's MO. She just said that anyway. But no, it's amazing. But yeah, JC and I we met during COVID on the Karen's call, and then we met IRL a couple times at NAMM. I'm going to say. But this last one, I just felt it was great, and I even tried to plan my events and all that stuff. But it just felt like so much was happening this time as opposed to last. Maybe it was just getting warmed up or something like that. But I felt like there was a lot of I missed a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
It's
Yeah.
coming back. It's coming back,
Yeah,
and there's
definitely.
and it's a model for community that I want to talk about
Totally.
shortly here.
yeah.
The main thing, though, instead of telling us a little bit about yourselves, because we're going to get to know more about you as we ask questions, I want you three to introduce each other because you all know each other. So,
Go.
and I thought I had picked people out, but I'm just going to let you guys do that. And each one of you just introduce another guest and give us a couple sentences of.
Well, let me start it off. I'm gonna introduce Harun. He's a amazing multi-instrumentalist, studio owning producer extraordinaire. This guy's amazing. He's my MD as well as a producer on a multitude of records of mine.
Wonderful. We're going to talk about that too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yay. Okay, who's next?
I'll go ahead and return the introduction of my boy Lake. So my man over here, so much to say about him. Future multi-platinum artist, rapper.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
Came up from the underground.
Yeah.
And now, working with some of the biggest names in the music industry, Red Bull, and a lot of, sync placement companies. And, he's up and coming and, he's ready to take over the world.
Yes.
Yes. Yay. Nice.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see that. Now, Bob, why don't you introduce Juan Carlos?
Well, what about JC? Like, what is he, chopped liver?
No, I mean,
let's
Lake,
talk about JC, man.
Lake, Bob, you both can chime in on. We can all chime in on Juan Carlos, I think, because everybody has great things to say about JC.
Yeah.
Who wants to start?
I can start it. An amazing engineer, amazing person. You know what I'm saying? Just a great producer. We make some crazy things together. And shout out to Karen for bringing us together.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Brought these worlds together. So
yeah, absolutely.
You can go from there, Bob.
Yeah. I was just like the first time I met JC IRL, I was like just blown away by how the positive energy coming off you, man.
Yeah.
Just kind of like the biggest hug, and they're like, "How have you been?" Like you couldn't wait to see me. I'm like, dude, like there's like 100 people in this room. Like you just made me felt like really good. So really positive energy, just a good human being, and obviously super talented.
Yes. And I want to add to that because I think I want to say the one thing to say about you, Juan Carlos, is that I tell everybody that you show up. You show up to everything. You show up to support people. And so people show up to support you. And, and that to me, like that goes noticed very much. And it makes people want to do things with you and for you because you do the work. And it's the very definition of what community is.
Yes.
And so I want to take that piece because all of you guys, are, doing amazing things. We're going to talk about some of that here because I want to learn more. And, like I try to do that as well. I try to show up. I showed, I wanted to see Harun play with the English beat.
Yes.
Because I love the English beat too, but I grew up with that. But I wanted to see, what is this like? What is this like to see, him there? I wanted to see Lake perform at NAMM, and I got pulled too many places, and I was really bummed out. And that's okay, because there will be more times.
Oh, yes.
There will be more, and that's why we're here. But also, this community, like we all met through Karen Dunn, who, is with KMD Pro, who puts on the logistics of NAMM. And I met her at a pop-up shop I was doing, here in the Bay Area for a bag company for designing after I left the North Face. And she invited me into this group early on during the pandemic. And it's this community of networking across the music industry. And then she invited Bob in when she did it.
Yeah, I always wondered how you guys met because it just felt like you guys had always known each other, but like I didn't even think to.
Yeah, she showed up at a pop-up shop that Leanna DeLuca Johnson and I were doing for our bag company. And she just
showed up.
She knew the owner of the pop-up shop.
Okay.
And she found me. And somehow we started talking, and I think we just probably both looked very, tall, black glasses.
Sure.
And and she's, and you're in a party scenario. And so I had talked about the fact that I had done some events, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I run events too."
Yeah, I run this little tiny thing called NAMM. Exactly. You may have heard of it.
And I was like, I was just about to go to NAMM. My partner's a musician. And so we met that way, and she said, I really love what you're doing. If you ever are going to kick it back up, let me know if you need help. And I did ask her to help me relaunch the Struktur event. And that's then how she met you, Bob. So, and brought you into the group.
Yeah.
But I would like to hear too from you guys how you guys got, brought in. But one of the things that Karen and I talked about in that is really bringing younger people into our communities, because at that time we were feeling like we're all getting older. Our industries are kind of getting a little stale. COVID hit, the music industry got hit hard. It's changing so much. The design industry, Bob and I are both, Bob's a musician. I'm a musician as well. But we both are in the design industry working for like Nike and the North Face, and that's what we do. And they're shifting a lot too. So we wanted to bring more young people in. So, but Karen has really done this amazing thing with this invite-only community that we network with. This has been going on for 5 years, I think.
But it was the COVID experiment. That's what she calls it, the experiment.
Yes.
Because it was a networking experiment.
And she brings in people from all ages, all genres, all skill sets. I don't know. I want to talk about what community, like what that is like for you to be part of that group and what community means to you. Yeah. And any one of you can kick it off.
I'll start.
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, it was, for me, it means a lot because it has teach me a lot of things. I remember that I started doing that. Well, I met Karen because it was at the speed mentoring at the Conservatory recording arts and sciences. Wow. I get into that. I got the opportunity to be there. And then after that, I remember that Karen posted something on Facebook that says, if everyone want to be part of the experiment and want to try this new thing that is happening with the COVID stuff, you are more than welcome. Just write down your name or something, a comment, whatever, and you'll be part of it. And I remember for me, I was so afraid of that because, I wasn't like networking with people a lot at that time. Right. And for me, well, like, okay, I need to say yes to this. I need to try it. And well, like one of the best decisions I ever made.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
I feel you, JC. Yeah. 100% is how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, it was amazing because the first time that I see like so many people like in the Zoom, like with the grid, it was so great to meet all. And it was everyone were in the same channel, like the same attitude, being cool, being open, talking about anything, but not the professions that we do. Like that's the really thing that I really like. And I realized how much important was being part of the community. For me, touched me like really deep because I learned how to talk with people, how to share my thoughts about things. And I feel embraced by that. And that's something that I always say to Karen, thank you for that, because I was able to make new friends that with the time, like after I think 2 years, 3 years, I don't remember, but being able to see you in person, it felt like we were close.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's when I first met you. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, you're a real person.
I've been looking at you on screen for like 2 years. Like, dude, wow.
Yeah. And for me, well, the community is amazing. I now have friends. I have Harun, I have Michelle, Bob, Blake, and so many others that I really love. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. And it's about this, like helping each other, being present, being able to support and, add value to them, like in some way. Right.
Yeah.
And that's super cool.
Did anybody else from the speed mentoring group that Karen was doing, did anybody else join from that group that you were part of?
From the experiment? I really don't remember, but I don't think so. Because, I think at the time when I went to the experiment, I was the youngest one. So I really don't remember. It was everything was like so fast. And I don't remember, I'm not sure. But I think I wasn't able to see the other person that are part of the experiment. You see the chat and all that, but I don't remember exactly.
Oh, interesting.
That's a good lesson for, everybody to, when somebody invites you to do something like this, you take the leap.
Yes.
Right. Like you're nodding your head in a big way.
Run with that.
It's so true, because even go piggybacking off of what JC said about meeting Karen, I met her through a great friend of mine named Mike Benj.
Yes.
And it only happened because I showed up to NAMM. I've never been as an artist. Mind you, as a hip hop artist, I've never heard of NAMM. Like I've never heard.
Oh wow, interesting.
I've always been interested in gear. Like what got me into recorded music was seeing the studio. So that's the introduction, but I never knew this existed. And I was in the underground scene for so many years. And then, me and Mike been friends since children. And it was like, yo, come to NAMM. And I came to NAMM and we ran into her. And the energy was amazing. Like it was just like it was, you know how when you meet somebody you just can't, and it just was what it was from there. And it's been a beautiful thing since. And the community we're able to build is crazy. Not just with us as the young guys coming together, we're also mixing with everybody. You know, we're collaborating in all aspects and, you know, caring about each other beyond the music as well, you know, beyond our craft.
That's community, you know? Yeah, community is all ages, all everybody. It's this acceptance, you know, and that embracing and that connection. You know, and I think about that, like Harun, same thing for you. I want to hear about this from you, is some of those things that I think about that are interesting to me. I don't know why this just is interesting to me, because of a band like the English Beat, who's been around for a really long time. And it's really, you know, it's not the original band anymore. It's you guys are playing. And I want to ask more about that later on. But to me, that's that feeling of that community of people who are really experienced, because in the group that we're in, that we're talking about here to our audience, you know, we have really experienced people. One of the people you've talked about is Lenice Bent, you know, who I've done. And Lenice and I did a podcast on Blondie's Auto American. And, you know, realizing like she, you know, sound engineered that album and was the first woman to be recognized for a platinum album back in the early 80s. And that was huge. That was one of my first albums, my favorite, one of my favorites. I still have my original. I brought it to the interview. I was a total nerd. But people like Lenice and a whole host of really experienced people across the industry in this group that Karen often has you know, you guys can ask anything you want of them, and they have great advice for you. But I also find that we know we need to learn from you guys, you know, because it's an energy exchange. So would you talk a little bit about your experience there, Harun, with the group?
So how I got into playing with the English Beat was from, again, Mike Binge.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he started touring with them back in the summer of 2023. So that was, you know, his first tour out in LA. I mean,
he's playing drums, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
He's done a previous tour, but that was his first tour situation.
Okay.
You know, moving to LA, just getting into LA. And you know, of course, all of us were just so happy for him, you know, yeah, Mike, you know.
Yeah, right. Go get it.
Yeah. And so by the end of it, I just finished DJing my cousin's wedding. I get a text from Mike. I look at my phone and he's like, pull up on this tour playing keys. And I'm like, what?
Like you were still at the wedding when you hear this?
Yeah, so the wedding was finished. I look at my phone, I'm just like, huh? So their keyboard player had to he had to leave because he had an obligation that he had to tend to. So I came in and, you know, I basically finished the tail end of the tour. And then, you know, after that, I just became one of the main keyboard players for the English Beat.
That's nuts.
It's all about timing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's all about who you know. And
I was going to say, but from what I know about that, because I think that's exactly how it happens almost every single time, right? Like,
yeah. That's why you show up. That's why
you get a call. Someone's like, "Ah, shit!" Like, right? So knows you're good, you're available, you're dependable, you're good.
Yeah.
Right. And then my bad.
No, go ahead.
Short, then a bass player that we knew that also went to school with us was added to the group. Another keyboard player that we knew that went to school with us added to the group. Dave wanted an engineer to travel with him, so we added him.
Harun, was it a Berklee thing or was it an LA thing?
Well, there's a very strong connection between Berklee and LA.
Right. Yeah. Right. Of course.
So really, you know, that just goes to show you how strong, you know, the Berklee network is.
Yeah.
You know,
yes.
Yeah.
Once one person gets onto a gig, then everybody puts their friends on.
Yeah.
That's what the situation was. Dave even called us the Berklee Beat.
This is the Berklee School of Music for our audience, in case they're wondering.
So a lot of what I like about, you know, Berklee and, you know, life after Berklee is that, you know, we all look out for each other.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you put in the work, as long as you're working on your craft, as long as you're bettering yourself,
Yeah.
you know, you won't be forgotten about. You will get seen. You will
That's
get
I've
Yes.
love that. I love that you said that, and that's a huge part of community. And I feel like that's one thing that I love about music that I don't find as often as I would like to in the design community. It's just like there's something about it. And like do you know Sput Seawright with Snarky Puppy and Ghost
Yeah.
Note?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to him at the Baked Potato a couple weeks ago, and I saw him at NAMM, and I was talking to him at the Potato, and I said like I was really surprised to see people like so upbeat at NAMM. He goes, no, he goes, people needed it. They needed that community, and I was like, God, it was such a great. And it's like that's kind of the topic of this whole thing is like that community isn't just in name only. It's like it's a real thing where people hugs and support, and it goes beyond the music, right? And it's like it's such a for me, who I feel like I've always been like I feel like a kind of perennial outcast wherever I've been. Like it's just like you just walk in and like you don't have to do anything. I mean, obviously you're doing your crap, but like you're just brought into this big warm hug, and it's such a great experience.
Yeah, it's the acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you're totally right.
Yeah.
As a musician, like NAMM is like the first time I ever felt like complete, like I belong.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's no boundary. It doesn't matter where you at, what you've done. We're all human. We're here. We're having a good time. And that's the especially coming from like the underground scene and everything, always, fighting. It's a fight to get where you want to go instead of us being together and building and just, forward. So it's a beautiful energy there.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I want to talk more about that too. Like Harun, how did you get into this group? How did you get invited in? Was that through Mike too? Was he already there? Because I know I met Mike bench. I knew I met him there first before I met you.
Mike was making all the connections here.
Yeah.
He it was through him. He was telling me a lot about Karen and how he had met her at a Spotify event and how they just connected, and Mike was just giving her lots of high praise, like, yo, Karen, she knows a lot of guys in the industry. She's like so connected.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let me go see what she's talking about.
And then she pulls you in and she doesn't let you leave.
And I don't want to leave.
Yeah, and I say something about Karen too is that even though she's not, where she said, she's behind the scenes and she likes to be behind the scenes, but she also has a very similar energy to a lot of us as creatives and artists, of that kind of introverted but liking to pull people together and watching everyone connect. And she finds a huge joy in that, which is what I do in the design community with Struktur, and why I think we connected as well. But I also I started to bring in music into Struktur event. I started when I left the North Face after leading design there for many years, because I wanted to create something for the designers and the creatives and the artists. We didn't have it. We didn't have that support. Like Bob was saying, we felt a lot of competition and isolated in our companies. And so that's why I started that. And so I was thinking about, Bob's story here for you guys who don't know much about Bob. It's similar to kind of how you fell into it as well with Bob was not a trained designer.
Oh God, no.
Early 90s. He was in the music scene, punk and new wave and rock.
No punk. No,
really?
but
I always think about that.
No, I went to
What'd you say?
That punk club, but SteerCon I wouldn't call it. It was just music, right? There was a little bit of funk, just alternative. It was like Nirvana played on New Year's Eve. I guess I was there, but I don't remember it. But I played. I guess I played for. I played jazz in high school. I came through the jazz program in high school. Then I played in what I guess what you call like a rock or grunge band, like in the late 80s, early 90s. Played drums. And I did all the art. And so anyway, long story short, I literally was a walk-on at Nike, like in the early 90s, because I had a portfolio full of like band posters, and I had, hair down my wherever. I was, oh, this guy's cool. Let's hire him. He's the personality hire. He knows the street, or like whatever. I don't know what the fuck it was. But and I tell people I'd be shocked if I had like 8 credit hours of college to my name when that happened. But like I could do the job. So now I'm at Nike for 10 years, and you're like, that's literally like the university of life. Like Nike, you're Tinker Hatfield's walking around, Mark Parker's walking around, Phil Knight, and everyone there is like like really good at what they do, right? And so like you get serious really quickly about getting good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's, like I said, I didn't go to school, but I learned, oh my God, I learned. There's some days I'd come home, it's just like, I don't know if I could take this because it was so high stress for me. So I wait till they find out how bad.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome. Hey, who doesn't have
Yeah.
imposter
Oh yeah.
syndrome?
Yeah. No, but I met like you guys. I mean, I met like some lifelong friends because you're like in these trenches together, working through shit and working late nights and weekends and
Right.
because you're not conscribed you're trying to do great work because the guy next to you is doing great work and it was a really cool environment.
But it's also about those showing up for the opportunities, like when you
Yeah.
get the call, like Harun did, to join the band, you're like, yep, Nike, you're
That's why I'm
there.
here. Yeah.
And I had all the same opportunities going back to school. And I ended up in Portland starting design at Columbia Sportswear, where I had a great boss who had come from Nike and Patagonia for years, but she gave me every opportunity. She was my mentor, and everything. I stepped up to the plate and said, yes, give me more, give me more. And within 5 years, I was headhunted out by the North Face to lead outerwear design. And so, you get these opportunities and you take them, and you run towards them. So,
yeah.
So I want to ask you guys, I want to talk about your musical influences now, because you guys are all, you're coming from different backgrounds, and I want to hear a little bit about, how you started and what interested you in music. What got you hooked? How was your family's?
Harun, you were you're not with the Blue Devils, but you're like in the New York Giants drumline. Is that right?
So Blue Devils Entertainment is a company.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew about the drumline, obviously, because they're like internationally famous. But like, okay, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So they have like different like drum lines in several states that are contracted to play with a certain sports team. So Golden State Warriors, there's a contracted with them.
Okay.
I think we're also contracted with Indianapolis Colts.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. So if you see a certain sports drum line, it's probably licensed or contracted with the Blue Devils Entertainment. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So
that's
what was that?
Well, as a drum nerd, like when you hear Blue Devils, you're like, right? I mean,
right? Yeah.
It's pretty hardcore.
So Bob's a drummer, in case you didn't know, because I don't think we said that, right?
I don't know. I said I played in bands. I didn't tell you what I played, but
yeah.
He mentioned it.
Yeah. So you guys, I mean, the thing about the three of you is you're all doing different things, but you do have lots of crossover, which is very much how the industry is nowadays. It may not have been that way when we were younger, like back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s when we grew up into things. So I was, when I was kind of going through your bios of all the different things that you've done and do, it's like I couldn't hang a label on any of you. I mean, it's very clear, Lake, that you're really going towards writing and performing and recording music. Yes. Harun, you run a studio that you founded, and you produce and you also play, and I don't know how many different instruments, but I know you play keyboard.
All of them.
Yeah.
And Juan
I'm
Carlos,
guessing all of them.
Yeah, you do audio engineering, but you also perform. Do you and you've worked with a lot of companies, both gear companies and on, I think TV shows in Mexico and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a bit about why we're here is I want to hear for you guys, you're having such a different experience coming up through the music industry than when Bob and I, were growing up in the, we were growing up in the music industry in the 80s and 90s, right? And it has shifted completely. So that's when I think about what are your musical influences and what does that drive you to do today? So I kind of want to just dive in on any of this stuff.
Yeah.
To be honest, influence-wise for me, I've always been extremely just influenced by the music industry as a whole from the beginning to how it is now. And I always just, the Berry Gordy's, the Joneses, all the way up to Dr. Dre's to, today's, 40, Drake, Kendrick's. I love the culture as a whole. There's not a genre I don't listen to or I've not listened to. It might be obscure things that heard of, but like for the most part, I've listened to so much different music. So I constantly just draw from like what makes me feel good. It's always been, it started with feeling with me as an artist. You know, when I was very young, my father passed away when I was 6 years old, and I started writing, and writing turned into me becoming an artist. But I never like thought it was going to be a thing for me at first. And then I just got, 15, 16, and I was like, let me actually try. Like I just used to hang out with my friends and spit bars and just, kids stuff, freestyles.
When you were growing up, what did your parents do before or even after your father passed away? Like, was there music in the house? Were your parents musicians, or were you?
I come from a musical background just based off of church alone. Like my grandfather Baptist, so gospel music was always playing. My uncle had a church in Harlem. It was called Little Widow's Mike, and
wow.
So I grew up listening to the choir. I grew up listening to those songs. So I feel like that's why I love melody so much. I love writing. Those are the things that touched my soul growing up as a kid.
Yeah. And that's like, I'm trying to think about, kind of the music that we grew up with or didn't grow up with when we were kids. And like when you guys were kids, I mean, there was so much more going on too. So like the help, to understand, like when I was a kid, it was the 70s. So I was listening to, a lot of disco and early hip hop and rock and roll. My dad was a rock musician, so I had a lot of a record collection. And what I got exposed to was what was on the radio and records that he gave me that he had to learn when he would go to play band jobs, right? And so and I was also inspired by going to church as well, but mostly choir, because it was Catholic churches and that kind of thing. It wasn't nearly as fun. How about you, Juan Carlos?
Yeah, JC, tell me about you growing up.
Well, for me, it was I was fortunate enough that my parents were musicians because they took me to the rehearsals. My uncle has a band like 3 hours away from here. It's called Las Nieves, a little town. And they took me every time. So every time I was hearing them playing, my dad used to play the keyboard, my mom singing, and then my uncle, my tío, playing the keyboard as well. And I was hearing all that the whole day, and that I think that helped me to understand, or at least being like a sponge, absorbing all that music.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So my first contact with music was when they let me to use the drums, and I was playing, and I was like, holy, what is this? At that time I was 3 years old or something.
I was gonna say, how old were you?
Not at the time, but it was a really important moment for me because from there I started realizing different things. I was hearing music differently. And I remember the moment that I don't forget. It's one day I was hearing this, I think it was the song Gimme from ABBA. And I was hearing that song. And I was like, what the hell is this? This is amazing. And I was like super shocked about how everything was played, how everything sounded. And I started like super interested about how this is made. Everything is like so in it like in the metronome and everything, like it's so well played. And at that time I wasn't realizing like all those things, but with the time I was noticing that all that helped me to lead where am I right now. So that was basically my influences. My influences were Latin music, cumbia, salsa, bachata, all that music. And like it's been with me for years. So that's my main influence.
I don't want to derail this, but I just want to amplify what you said. I remember the first time I saw a live band when I don't know how old I was. We were probably like some steakhouse, and there was like a top 40 band playing in the lounge, and they were playing some song, and I thought that they were the band that played that song on the radio. I thought that was them, and it lit me up. And I was like, what the hell? You know what I mean? That feeling of like, however, I remember that. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I remember that feeling of being little and hearing live music for the first time. It was like, I know now what I must do.
It doesn't matter though. It wasn't the actual band.
It didn't, not at all. No, but the energy, I was literally just like, live oh my God. Yeah, it was like an atom bomb. So anyway, thanks for sharing that.
And it sounds to me like at least what we've heard from Lake and Juan Carlos is like you guys, even though live music has been kind of has been shifting. When we were young, like people had to have live music. If DJs weren't even quite a thing yet. And so bands, like that's what my dad did, is he got hired as a band regularly to play all kinds of events and clubs and stuff. You hired the band and they covered the music. And so you guys grew up with your family's playing live music, your church playing live music. So you're actually seeing people doing that. How about you, Harun? Was that the same for you in your
it's pretty
exposure?
much the same. Yeah, I also come from a huge church background. I started playing drums at the age of 3.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, just like Juan Carlos, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were playing the drums. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, yeah, they would call me the drummer boy in church. That was my nickname. And like literally I was always about drums, like to the point where my mom, like she would take these little paper hangers, break them apart, and every time we would sit behind the pew, I would pretend that the pew was the drums and the ladies that was wearing the big old church hats.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I would hit them. So anytime that cymbal would strike, that hat would strike with it.
That's awesome. What did they think?
You know what? Actually,
Oh
for
my
the most part, they were good sports about it.
Yeah.
Good. I would expect that. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good.
That blows the Dave Grohl story of him learning how to play on pillows in his bedroom. That blows that away to me. Learning how to play with hangers.
We all did that.
Church ladies' hats.
Yeah, and I'll say about my my home church, like everybody, really encouraged me along the way, and they really supported it. So
that's so cool.
So
that's a little different than the church experience I grew up with, but I'm not saying that's not anything about churches. I think that's cool. I think that's so good to hear. You were supported and encouraged and like.
Hey man, those churches that kind of like lift people up and that singing in church for everyone. I don't know. I guess for those of us who like to sing and like music, that's always been kind of that thing that you hang on to, but. So you guys all learned, you guys had that exposure and, you either worked on it and just kind of fell into it. And some of you got educated into it. I mean, everybody, same thing with our world a lot of people don't have degrees and just fell into it. A lot of people do have degrees and fell into it. Doesn't matter. But, how did that kind of take you into then studying music and like creating a path? I'm kind of drawing from that initial inspiration to what you're doing now and how you started down this path,
Like when you first knew it could be a thing?
To be honest, I'll say for myself, once I realized it, I started studying everything that I thought was great as far as people and like the way that they did things. So like as a rapper, like all the rappers that I looked up to, the Jay-Z's, the Lil Waynes, the 50 Cents, these guys stayed in the studio. So that was like my first arc was studio, get in the studio and work and create things because it's going to take time. Like that's one thing I realized early, like it was going to take time because the first rap I ever wrote, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
How did you realize that it happened in the studio? Like what happened in that connection?
Yeah, talk about that.
I come from a heavy construction background, like my dad, like my stepfather, but I call him my father, like the man that raised me. Yeah. I come from that structure background. So in construction, there's so many different steps. And in construction, you don't just go in there thinking you know everything. You have to listen to the older guys, listen to the people that's been around the job.
Oh, wow.
I took that mindset and I applied it to music. I was like, let me go in here and become a student and just continuously work. Like, I don't know it all and I don't want to know it all. I want to continue.
Right. You want to learn.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's great. I totally relate to that. I too was raised by an adopted father. And his father was a contractor. And so I grew up with a lot of construction around as well. And he was a drafting engineer. And so I think about that learning those steps. I'd never put that together. That's really cool.
And even in that sense, that's what funded my music career. I worked construction many years. I've been helping them out since I was 13, 14 years old.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
And it started with, wanting to get fresh, wanting clothes, wanting North Face jacket.
Right.
Yeah.
North Face was huge where we came from. So to hear that you worked all night is just like, it's like a full circle moment for me.
You might have some of my stuff.
like it was grails growing up. Yeah. But in that sense, it's like, working construction made me understand like the grind of music and putting your money where you need to go where you want.
Yeah. And also how to build things, because, like when you're, like you said, you're writing a rap song, you're building, you're composing something, you're putting components and pieces together and you're layering, you want to speak. How about you, Juan Carlos? Yeah. what do you have to say?
Well, for me, education was something that I was in my mind. I thought it could be doing anything by myself and learning, but I got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to prepare myself. Being a person that I'm in Mexico, I was realizing that I need to do something else to get out of my comfort zone and start like doing actually something. And that caused me like, that take me like some quite time to realize that I had to do it. But I'm always been like, okay, I need to say yes to this. I need to try it. I need to study. And after that, before that, I went to a military school where they taught me like so many stuff, like following protocols,
Right.
being like trying to learn and being open to so many things, and the constant trying to grow to get a new degree in, like, I don't know, sergeant or like something else. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that
Interesting.
was really motivating because I was like, I can actually apply this to my life.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
when I was at the Conservatory recording arts and sciences, I was the same for me. Okay, I'm gonna start from this little by little. I can put a brick and then start growing from there. And that's what it was my mindset, like really close to lake, right? Like trying to grow up, but at the same time helping people, and at the same time like learning the language in my case, right? And
Right. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
and that's for me like something that it taught me like so many things. For me, it was really important, and really, this is where I met Karen. This is where I met like so many friends that right now we
Yeah.
collaborating together. And
Yeah.
a funny story is like, at that time I didn't know how to speak English. So I was trading classes with a friend that was working at the Home Depot, and he was like, "Hey man, there's so many Latin people coming here. I don't know how to say if they want this, how I can help them. Okay, I'm gonna
Right.
trade you some English lessons for some
God damn, that's
Spanish
so cool.
lessons. Like, you can
That's
say this and you can
awesome.
try this." And
That's awesome.
and
Yeah.
that's part of the community too, right? Like how
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
someone else
Yeah.
and how you can add value
Totally.
to them.
Totally. Oh my God, that's so cool.
And
Yeah.
for me, that's been like so important, like something that I really appreciate learning and being, able to. I have to say thanks to my parents because they support me. They were
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
to try this, go and give you 200% on it and
That's
do your
key.
best. And yeah.
Yeah, that shows it makes me think of because I'm also a martial artist for the last 30 years. One of the things that we say in Indonesian is "Gotong Royong," which means share and share alike. And that's
Yeah.
community based. And that's like, I help you, you help me, and we build something together. Our community needs a school, we build it all together, and we all have ownership in it and care for that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how, like, what makes some of us know at an early age,
Yeah.
I need to get out of my comfort zone. Like, who thinks that when they're
Yeah. Who
young?
thinks that when you're like, that's baked in, I would think. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I
Harun,
mean,
tell me about how you wound up at Berklee. Like, what was your path getting into Berklee?
So my parents started enrolling me in a lot of musical education.
Yeah.
good for them. Yep.
Yeah, so that my gift could be further cultivated.
Yeah.
So when I was in middle school, I did lots of youth programs in some of the top music schools in New York City.
Yeah. There's a few of those there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the musical advancement program, long format program at Juilliard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also did a
Great experience.
pre-college program at Manus Conservatory of Music.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there I went through a lot of classical training.
Wow.
And how to play mallet percussion, from the timpani to xylophone, marimba.
Right. Right.
Wow. Nice.
It's just, it reminds me, like, do you know Peter Erskine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar story. Like 3 years, I think he started playing literally at 3 years old. And his parents shipped him out to Interlochen, Michigan, because he was like a child prodigy, right? Same thing. Like he kept being like, so when you're talking about like, oh yeah, I was like, I forgot about, yeah, you said the church drummer, right? Like, so like, and that's so cool that your parents supported you and put you on the path to like,
Yeah.
to where you are now. Really cool.
And did you want that? That's the other thing, is like there's parents also that like that do those things for kids, and some kids are not, they do it because but because they have to, and some kids really love it.
So I loved playing classical music, but I knew I really couldn't see it in my future as something I would do consistently as a professional. But I am absolutely grateful for
Yeah.
the experience and from the knowledge that I have from it, because now I apply a lot of what I've learned into what it is I do now. Whether it's
Yeah.
playing
Right.
one of the instruments that I play, or even arranging and producing. I take a lot of nuances that I've, from studying
Absolutely.
lots of
Yeah.
orchestra and a lot of classical pieces that I've played.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, chord progressions and idioms and all that stuff, right? Comes like you're calling it up from, God, I was like,
Music.
yeah, and it permeates in ways you wouldn't think of. I remember someone talking about, for example, like that Subway $5 footlong jingle came from, is actually like a metal progression. I can't remember what the scale is,
Oh,
but like
yeah.
he pulled that from like this pop jingle came from like a completely different part of the universe, and it became something, so I could see like that's such a cool story that you have all that
Yeah.
training.
The music theory,
Even that is as well too. So
Yeah.
I gave it my Saturdays as a kid, man.
I
Yeah.
bet you did.
Yeah. She wanted to
playing,
do it. Yeah.
playing video games. I was up early in the morning, 8 o'clock. At class we would have like music theory class, and then we
Yeah.
had training, and
Yeah.
then we'll have.
And how old are you when you're doing this?
I was probably like 11 to
Yeah.
You were already hooked in there. Yeah.
like 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
in between, I was also doing a lot of jazz too, but
Mm.
most of the classical stuff. But yeah, I was doing that stuff like from late middle school into early high school.
That stuff's
Interesting.
hard too. I was taking music theory because my partner is my guitar teacher, and he was like, he studied all of this, and he was like, you should take a music theory class. And I took a music theory 1 class before COVID, and then music theory 2 was right during COVID, and so it all had to go online, and it got so hard because the teachers
Yeah.
didn't know how to do it online at that time.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, but it's so hard. And as an adult, I don't know, music theory as an adult is really difficult. It's another language, learning music theory, learning music, how to read it. It's more difficult as an adult. So
You never stop learning. You
Yeah.
never.
Yes, that's
No.
true.
when it
No.
comes to-
Totally.
that's why we're learning from you guys too, because
Well,
you guys
right.
are having,
I know it cracks me up when I see Rick Beato. He'll play a chord and goes, "Oh, that's a flat fifth over a C major." Like, what? like,
yes, my partner
Yeah.
Greg can do that too. He
Yeah.
loves Rick
Oh.
Beato. I can hear a sound in the wind, some sound outside, and go, that's kind of the B minor
Yeah,
13th chord.
No, so
I'm gonna throw him under the bus, but Harun does that all the time. Like
Somehow I totally believe that. Throw him under the bus, man.
what good is power if you can't use it, man? Right?
right?
But this is what I mean.
You got to use what you learn.
It's the fundamentals, man.
Yeah.
And this is the underlying thing when people always talk about like fine art and Picasso and people that do all kinds of crazy stuff, is that he had all the foundation of classical painting and could do such realistic, amazing painting before he moved out into doing cubism and abstract painting. Same type of thing. You've got to have that foundation, and it comes through in everything that you do. I'm curious what you got, what kind of music you were drawn to when you knew that wasn't going to be the direction you wanted to go. Where did you want to go? What were you getting pulled towards?
Well, outside of going to music school, I was listening to a lot of gospel, hip hop, R&B, on the radio.
Yeah.
I would drive with my mom all the time, listening to Hot 97,
Yeah.
5.1, you know what I mean? So I was very much into what was hot back then in terms of hip hop and R&B. So I always said, I definitely want to do something in that arena. And then of course, like a lot of jazz, smooth jazz. I'm a huge fan of smooth jazz, and I let that be known to everybody.
Oh my God, really? Really?
Yeah.
I love Jeff Lorber.
Oh man.
Oh man.
My God. That's one of my guys right there, yo.
That record, Soft Space.
I
probably played Soft Space at least 1,000 times. That record is amazing.
Yeah, I love a lot of what he did with his fusion band.
Yeah.
Jimmy Haslip on bass.
Novak, Gary Novak,
On no,
Haslip.
yeah, Haslip, Will Kennedy, and
Oh,
Eric Marienthal. Yeah, I was binging those guys, crazy.
Oh man, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, you're referring to the fusion that he had back in the 70s.
No, he did a couple of records with Gary and Jimmy Haslip. Like I think his last couple of records with Gary Novak and Jimmy Haslip.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was listening to.
No, I know what you're talking about. No, but like Lorber is the man.
Yeah.
Lorber is the man. He played a show at the Baked Potato with John Robinson a couple months ago, and I was like, they were talking about old times in the studio. I'm like, I had no idea he was that deep. He's bananas.
Yeah. Also, prayers out to him because he lost his house in the fire.
He lost his house.
Oh man, so many people did. Yeah, our last guest, Elove just lost his house, and a lot of people have, So, hey, I wanted to ask you, Lake, because your bio talked about sharing stages with some big names, Stevie Wonder, DJ Scratch, DJ Battlecat. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was an amazing opportunity. Shout out to Tony. We were at NAMM just hanging out before it even opened. We were just there, randomly. I believe Mike was doing a Sony panel, so we were with Mike, and we went out there the day before, and we're all chopping it up because we're all close through the call and things of that nature. And I love to pick his brain about hip hop all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Such a wealth of knowledge. And we're just talking. He's like, "Yeah, so I got this extra slot for tomorrow. You guys gonna play?" I looked at him. I said, "I was born for this." You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
it's something I'll never forget. Like, it's one of those moments. Like, because as a kid, I've always listened to Stevie, and I've always admired him in his musical sense and his writing and how. Then on top of that, the longevity. Like, it's this.
No, I know.
Not easy to be here for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Yeah. But to be here as long as he has and touched so many people.
He was touching things when I was, in the early 70s when I was little, first hearing music with my dad,
I got an uncle, he sings, and he was like, "How did you open up for Stevie Wonder before me?" I started laughing. I was like, it's crazy. But thank you to everybody that helped that happen. And all the guys on the stage, like even in Essence, we got to do that. And the first thing I thought about is bringing as many as us as we can on that stage. And just bring it up there and showcase that, showcase what we do. Because that's what it's all about. It's dope for me, but at the same time, it's even better with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Harun, I keep wanting to ask you, what is it like, because I got to see you play live with the English Beat. And, that was a band that was huge for me when Bob, did you listen to the English Beat?
Yeah, I dabbled in new wave. They were a little bit. I was like into like more of the hard, like Joe Jackson and maybe some more of the punky stuff. But no, it was all part of like the kind of the milieu. Definitely.
I got into Madness and the English Beat in the early 80s with the whole, MTV thing and whatnot. And so, of course, Mirror in the Bathroom is always the one we love the most. And of course, they always play that live. But it was great to see you up there playing and seeing, and the audience was a bunch of people like me and older than me and younger than me. A lot of people brought their kids there, and people are singing and dancing to it. I thought about that while I was filming it. I was thinking, like, what is that like for you as a musician? I say a young musician, you're young to us, and a musician today. Yeah. To play with such old music, like established stuff that has an older audience, that has a incredibly intense older fan base. And I'm not sure, how they're dredging up any new fan base and stuff, but I'm curious how that is for you coming in as a musician and being part of that legacy experience.
So as a young chap, I didn't know anything.
Right.
So over time, I was just learning as I went, more and more about the influence of these guys and what they did for ska music. But I will say that I grew up in the household listening to a lot of reggae music and a lot of music from the Caribbean.
Yep.
that, a lot of like, dance hall and soca. Yeah, my parents are from the islands.
Okay.
So so my dad, he brought me a lot of like Bob Marley stuff, Peter Tosh and all that. So
so you got it.
So coming in, coming in, like I already knew like the nuance and the feel of reggae, and that nobody really taught me how to play it either. It's just straight from the blood.
Yep.
Right. So I am curious, how much time did you have to shed for that? Did you,
I only had probably like a couple weeks.
Yeah,
or maybe like a month. I got the call a month ago.
Yeah.
And
nuts.
Whole set list of songs that I had to learn.
But then what about the pads? Do they give you presets for the pad? I mean, I'm just literally curious about the mechanics of how that shit works. Like, how do you, so you got a chart, but then you got sounds, you're a keyboard player, you got like pads, right? You got to learn all.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would listen to the records, and I, what's on there, and I would try to emulate the sound, based on what's going on in the record. I would have my Nord, and really most of the stuff on there is just
pretty straightforward.
Yeah. It's a lot of organ, if not acoustic piano.
Okay. So it's not like a Thomas Dolby gig or something.
It wasn't really easy, with the presets or anything. Like, we didn't have like 5 keyboards or anything like that.
Yeah, got it.
It was very simple. So part I can, rest my head on that.
You're pro, right? Too. You can cover this shit.
And you'll be all right.
No, respect. I mean it. Yeah.
And you probably had some pretty big audiences too. Some really passionate audiences.
Oh, yeah. We've had some wonderful audiences, man. We played at the Greek Theater.
Oh, nice.
I saw that video.
Yeah, that was great. That was always a good time. We played at the Darker Waves Festival at Honey. Did you go to that, Rob?
This year I went 2 years ago. I didn't go this year. It's at the Rose Bowl, right?
No, not the.
Oh, the beach.
Yeah, that was Huntington Beach. You're talking about.
Was that this year or last year? I went last year when like
I think you guys did this year.
Tears for Fears was playing and Devo and.
So, that was November 2023.
Okay.
Right.
And I think that was our biggest crowd that we played for.
Yeah, that was a great show. Yeah.
250,000 people.
In there.
You were there? That was you? That's crazy.
Yeah.
We spent the whole day running from stage to stage. So usually, unless it was a band I really wanted to see, like we were just somewhere towards the back. So
Tears for Fears was playing later that night.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing vibe. But
we
were on a road.
New Order played. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They played. We were on a rotating stage. One of the, I think it was the darker stage. I don't remember.
Yeah.
As soon as it turned around, man, it was like looking at sardines up in there, man.
No, it was nuts. That's the band Michelle TSOL played.
Yeah,
TSOL played at.
Yep. Oh my God. I'm tripping out on the fact that a lot of this music is 40 plus years old.
Yeah.
And we were thinking about like, excuse me, when we were kids in the 80s, 40 years before was the 40s, right? And we were not listening to a lot of the stuff.
It was like banjo music.
Well, there was some jazz and big band and stuff like that.
God knows what it was.
But I mean, just that these bands are still playing and that it creates opportunities for, all of the new musicians that are coming in to connect. It's a lot more multi-generational than it's ever been, I think.
Yeah.
And so I'm tripping out on that a bit. And I think that's awesome. And I love that. I love that because we've been able to hang on to our music for so long and get into new music and watch it all intermix in some new ways. Juan Carlos, you've done a bunch of stuff for TV, right? Some TV shows. Like, how'd you get involved in that?
Well, that's a really interesting story because I never expected to be working in a TV show as The Voice here in Mexico. So long story short, I invited a friend here. We were doing music And he brings another friend of mine, and he came right here, and he was saying nothing. He was a serious person at that time. And I remember he was listening everything we were doing. And after finishing my graduating from the Conservatory Recording Arts and Sciences, he sent me a message. He knew that I was back in Mexico, and he sent me a message. Hey, would you like to work? Oh, okay. Before this, I was taking some vacations. I was going like 3 hours away from here visiting my grandma. So when I went there, immediately he sent me the message when I got there. And he said me, hey, there's this opportunity for music producer for the boys. We're looking for someone that has experience in different genres and all that. And would you mind if I ask the executive producer if you want to be part of it? I was like, yeah, do it. But at that time, I wasn't thinking that it was going to happen. So I was like, okay, hey, grandma, how's it going? You know, saying hi to the family. 5 minutes after, he called me and he's like, you're in. And he's like, what?
Wait,
okay,
what?
grandma, I gotta go.
And you had to leave right away. And what were they asking you to do?
So they basically asked me for making the music from bachata, from cumbias, from Latin music, basically. And they had a band already playing with it, but I was helping to build like the structure, the main structure for the music. If I was doing it was necessary to make some sound design, I was doing that. I was creating everything from scratch, because what they wanted is like a replica of the song, but 1.5 minutes. So I had to look for the patches and like start working some sound design and doing all that and recording everything as needed, and then send them, you know, to them so they can actually use them in the TV show.
Oh, that's crazy. So you're the guy who did that.
Yeah, I was
that was your job. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, that was my job. And it was so cool to see, like, I don't know how many hours I put on that work, but it was like, I think 100 and plus songs that I had to work in 2 months.
Wow.
And that teach me a lot. I'm really grateful for that opportunity,
because
that helps me to increase my workflow in talking about time, right? Like in time matter. And for me, it was really interesting, really amazing. And it was unbelievable for me to see my music on the TV, the national TV. And I'm really grateful for that. Shout out to Rai for the opportunity. And it was really cool.
So, and when we talk about this, so you do multiple things. All of you guys do multiple things. And this is, I want to use this to kind of talk about the industry and how it is today. So what would you say if somebody comes up to you, you meet someone and you say you work in the music industry, what do you tell them you do?
Say yes.
No, I mean, what do you do? Yes, all of it. What do you tell people, Juan Carlos, that you do in the industry? This is also like younger people saying, like, what do you do? What kind of jobs are there?
You're at a party and someone asks you what do you do? What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, it will be basically that I make music, like every element of the music, I make them to someone else to sing on top of it, or like a project that is needed with music, and that I put like emotions and I put feeling on it so people can actually feel that when it goes out. So it's a process that takes time, and basically I don't know if I explained myself right, but
no, you can. There's no wrong way to explain yourself. This is what I want to dig into now with what all of you guys do. Is the music industry has shifted so much. There's so many things to do. It's so much of it's digital. There's production. There's all kinds of plugins, and there's actual instruments. There's digital instruments. There's all kinds of things to do. And if you say I put emotion into it, well, how do you do that? What do you do? Like what are the tools you use? Like. Yeah, and I want this question to be for everybody, so everyone can chime in as we talk about this. But as we talk about what is the music industry like for you guys, and I realize you have you don't have a history year before you were born of what to compare it to, except for what you've studied and learned. But what is? Yeah.
Can I make an observation to kind of kick this off? Because something occurred to me, and I talked to my son about. My son's about your age; he's in his 20s, and he's the one to turn me on to like Yusuf. And Mac Miller and cats like that. And what really struck me about, and I love it, and I share like all the old shit I know about, but it really struck me about like what music today, what things I think is amazing about it, it's like a cat like Mac Miller, rest in peace, like was like I saw a video of him like just chopping up beats and putting them together, and then he raps over, and then he gets Thundercat to come in and play a track on it, and it's just like he's just making music, right? He doesn't call himself a bass player. He's not a guitarist. He's not in a band like Aerosmith. Like he just wants to make music. That's it, right? And I love that I love that's how he approaches it, and not as like just like, oh, I'm a bass player. I only play on sessions like old school bass. Like it's different, but it's not. I like it. I think it's an evolution of where that was headed anyway. And it's more of a democratization. I can't pronounce that word. Like of just like making music, hard stop, right? And I see Harun, like you, Lake. Juan Carlos, like that's what you're doing, right? That's why it's so hard. Like that's why Juan Carlos, it's hard for you to say. Like, are you a producer? Yeah. Do you play music? Yeah. Do you like? Well, I don't know. What do you need?
So how do we kick this off with a question?
Yeah.
Like, what's our question? I don't know. I have a hard time with it.
Yeah. No, it's a jumping off point. I just want to hear like where you think. I guess what I would know is like where do you see it now? Where do you see it going? Like, in the years to come, like, is it going to be more of that, or is it going to get more atomized, or is everyone going to have their own personal home studio and no one's going to record together anymore?
Yeah.
Or is it,
Who do you want to kick that off? Harun.
Well, I still think that you need, that community and that collaboration is, still very much important. Even, being in the same room together, like you can get a lot of things done. When it's remote, the workflow is not as quick. I mean, we all do it all the time with Lake and Juan Carlos. We're always sending stuff back and forth. But man, if we lived together, or if we lived in the same city, then we wouldn't get no sleep.
Yeah,
that's true.
We have probably like 100 records. It's like thousands of pieces of content, So it's definitely gotten to a point where, the ability of making music has become more easily accessible. However, you still need that
that interaction.
Yeah.
Bouncing off ideas and different skill sets and stuff.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're still human.
Yes.
That you can't alter, you can't change.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Yeah, tell me more. And also, that human piece of, technology coming into it, because music's always been interplaying with technology. But, of course, we have a lot of conversations with Rick Beato and all those guys online with AI. And you can really pick it out. You can really tell. But how do you guys utilize the technology and the tools that you have now as artists, to do what you do?
For me, going back to your initial question about how like I would introduce myself, I introduce myself as a hip hop artist. And the reason I say hip hop artist is because I can add a hip hop element to a rock beat. I can add a hip hop element to a jazz beat. Like you going back to what Bob was saying, it's a music thing, and I hate when people get caught up in all these like terms and boxes, because when I'm sitting in the studio with the guys, like before I even write anything, we're making sure the soundscape is set, Times where we go in there, we just make things and it's dope. And then there's times we go in there with clear intention. Like we wanted to sound movie, or we want to sound like this, or I want to write or talk about a situation that happened in my life so other people can connect from that aspect. But going to your second question, as far as like where things are going, it's going to be more personal than it's ever been. Especially with all this technology and AI and things of that nature, it's going to be time for us to be as personal as we can as musicians. And like, because there's so many different types of people in the world.
Right.
And so I feel like we need to, like, there's so many different artists that can speak to those people. And it's about just touching your people, no matter if you have 2 fans or you have 2 million fans, that connection matters. It really does.
Yeah.
How do you guys talk about that with, Harun, you started Paco Bear Studios? Am I saying that right? but I want to hear why and how, why you started that. But also, the artists, you've got some YouTube videos. I've seen Lakes and one of your other artists there. But that's you talk about what's behind it. And I think a lot of people do that in terms of like interviews and whatnot. But that you can really see in those videos as the music's playing and the feeling is going, that you're highlighting the person behind the music and why they're doing that. Can you talk a little bit about the studio?
Yeah, so how I got the name was, so Paco Bear is actually my nickname that my aunt
What? That who?
My aunt.
You drop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
yes.
That nickname. So when I was a little kid, I used to be in the car with her and my mom, and I would mess around with the radio, and I would always stop at the station that was playing salsa.
Oh,
really?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so she just gave me the name Paco, added a bear to it.
Oh God, it's good.
Paquito.
Nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Paquito.
So when the time came to think of a name for the studio, I was just like, man, let me just call it Paco Bear.
Let's
You know?
just let it rip.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah, but as far as what I'm doing with the studio, so I have an eye for like camera work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Clearly,
So,
yeah.
I want to, push lots of content out there, and so we have a series called Artist Sessions, and I work with Jaleel Hills, who is amazing, talented filmmaker, producer. He's also a drummer. I also marched with him in the New York Giants drumline.
Great.
Nice.
Yep.
And he's also my cousin.
Family community.
There's your community.
Yes.
Yeah. So always communicating with each other. We're always bouncing ideas back and forth, and he's very great to work with because he has a lot of energy, and he's just down to he has lots of ideas. He has a couple short films that I've scored.
Nice. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
That's sharing.
To him about this idea. He was like, yo, let's do it. I'll get some of my boys, you get the artists, and we'll just go ahead and plan it there. So he's, director, executive producer. I'm
Damn.
I just tell him, what it is I want to see.
Yeah.
And he is able to translate that.
That's so cool, Harun.
It looks great too. What I've seen so far. And I love the color, the energy. If I get a sense of what the studio is about in a very fast, very quick way. So I've always been into a lot of neon aesthetic, and I never really discovered like exactly what that was until a few years ago when I was in college. Like I just came across synthwave. Yeah.
I was just, oh wow, like
yeah.
I found like my inner tribe, like right here.
Yes.
There's retro wave art and stuff like that. And but before that, growing up, I was always into, lots of neon, lots of lighting. And, I always like going to Times Square just because, that
right.
Yeah, that's just my vibe, man.
Yeah.
Like being on stage with the lights except the lights are on you there, but
right.
Yeah, my son is so into that too. He was the first one to want to get lights and put blue, colored lights under his bed so he can change the lighting up to, go up, with the Govee lights where they can Bluetooth with the music and change the music. But no, the lighting that you have in that is really great for Lake's videos too. It really gives us really nice atmosphere that shifts in the colors. This kind of watery look. That's really beautiful.
Right. Yeah. So I always want to give artists, a different experience. Get that and just make them feel something different.
Yeah. Bob, doesn't this sound a little bit like the conversation we want to have with John Stork about Electric Lady Studios?
And to me, I feel like it feels like just delightfully meta. Like, and if it even go back to like what I imagine, like, Andy Warhol is trying to do with the factory, he just wanted like just a bunch of creative people to get together and make stuff, right?
Yeah.
And without like, I think, labels are helpful when you're trying to describe this, somebody else, like what you're trying to do. But when it comes to that, what you're trying, I'm talking to another artist, sometimes they're not helpful and they kind of get in the way, right? Like, so that's why I love, like, Corinne, you talk about like you have a vision. Like I don't know any artist who doesn't have a vision. And I have a good friend actually from Dumbo, and I was talking about this in the early days of ADD, which I definitely have. And he said, I don't know how you can be an artist and not have ADD. And what he meant by that was like because you're just trying to absorb source material all the time, right?
You're being
like
inspired by everything.
Yeah, like I did have professor tell me, he goes, the best thing for an artist, for, you can learn technique anywhere you want, but like you just need source material. You need to like get a fine arts degree and just read books, see movies, see the world, right? Just to take that stuff in and then make art with that.
Okay,
and the more you have, the more source material you have to work with, the more
Okay,
original your art can be.
Bob, it makes me think about, because I wanted to talk about the role of social media now and the business world. And you guys have to know, like I was doing some interviews with some design college students and talking about a panel of all the different things they have to know and do. So all the things you guys have to know and do that we didn't have to know. I mean, we made posters and, physically made our cassette covers and things like that. And you guys all have a really interesting Instagram feed. You have YouTube channels. You have all these different platforms with which you have to tell your story, get your message out, right? And it can feel kind of overwhelming. But to your point, Bob, artists have all these different ideas of all of these things they want to affect. So maybe it's great that you have all of these avenues that you can plug into now. But I want to talk about the business side and the social media and how that is, because you talked about that, Juan Carlos, like wanting to know all of it. All of you guys, Lake, you said that as well. It's like, I want to know the whole business, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that business, social media, all the stuff you guys have to do on that side of it to promote.
Yeah. For me, social media has been like so important because Instagram has become the portfolio where people can see your work and people can see what you do, like immediately notice why you're working and what is your thing. And for me, that's something that I've been enjoying a lot to do. Some of the times I take the time to take, a picture of the album that I'm working on so people know where is this. Same for the collaboration. It's helping other people to connect each other. Again, community, right? Because if I tag, for example, Lake, Harun, or Bob, or you, Michelle, people gonna know that we're working together. And you probably know someone else that needing that service or needing that, whatever it is. And we connect through there. And sometimes we underestimate how powerful is Instagram. And it really is. Right now, it has become like a portfolio, really.
Totally.
For me. And for me, I have people that has contacted me from there. Hey, I saw a video from someone else. We had the chance to work with Harun, me, and some other friends in a Baby Monster cover, right, where I mixed it. And we tag each other. And so we had the opportunity to collaborate. And then I received a message from someone else that, hey, I saw your video and whatever, and start working on that. And that's how important it is for me. And it's something that we need to get used to, learn how to use it, because for me, it's something that helps me a lot.
Yeah, and it's changing. Like, and I think that I agree with you. That's what I use Instagram for now myself, is more of a portfolio. It's even more for myself. Like, so I can collect things and then direct people to it and say, if I need that. And I know Harun and Lake, you guys, you have a lot. It's like when I look at your Instagrams and I think these guys all just grew up with it. It looks cool. Like, how to build for it, right? It seems to be second nature.
It's ironically it is, but it isn't, because I grew up. Well, we all grew up. It's like the transition,
right?
Like Facebook and MySpace, it was not as like personalized as it is now. And then on top of that, you didn't have the metric aspect of it. So it's like Instagram grew, and it was just about like you and your homies and like what you're doing in town or what you're into.
Right.
And then now to a business. And I had to go back, and a friend of mine, she teaches a course, an artist development course. And I went back and took that course so I can know how to dictate like my creativity, so I can tell the story. Because I look at it like a broadcasting channel. Has their own individual broadcasting channel, especially with stream and all these different things. So I just look at it from that perspective. Like, how do I want people to, if you were coming to my channel or art, how would you want that to, be picked, put together color wise, and just the message and the things that you represent. So you find things of your personality and you mesh it with business. Like, I don't get to show everything of myself because I'm a very conservative person in that aspect. Like, I want aspects of my life to stay aspects of
When
it comes to creativity, when it comes to like community and stuff like that, I'm all for it, and that's what it's all about.
How about you, Harun? Good.
I would say the same thing. I remember when Facebook was starting to get hot, and it was just a tool for everybody just to post pictures and get their thoughts out there, like anything they thought of, you just go ahead and just put it out there.
It's all game.
Right. And then of course Instagram came along, and then Twitter. but now it's transitioned to, you know, like what we've talked about being a business portfolio. And now you kind of have to be a little bit more careful about what you post.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of industry professionals that are on there looking at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially if you're working with very well-known people.
Yeah.
And what you post, you know, right?
Yeah.
So if you're allowing social media to, you know, show your personality and you're just up there just posting whatever, then the question comes into, okay, how is this person operate in the real world?
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you guys deal with that? Because you guys have, like, our generation has had to kind of grow up. A lot of us hide from these platforms. People don't, you know, are not, or you try to use them and you feel a bit kind of clunky and, you know, like making a lot of mistakes, putting the wrong stuff up, you know, like, what do I expose? What do I not expose? I'm not used to having this exposure. You guys might have grown up with a little bit more of this exposure, but now you have to decide and craft your identity on those platforms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's something that, like, it's not, you don't have to think so deep about it, but at the same time, you just got to be mindful, you know, about mindfulness. Because there's
intentional.
Exactly, because we're humans at the end of the day. Like, sometimes there's something that you're gonna, like, you wouldn't necessarily say or expose if you were in a certain space, but you may be feeling that way. And sometimes it's necessary to do those things, stay human. But at the end of the day, it's like, keep the main thing. If I'm a musician, I don't, you know what I'm saying, I don't want to go far. And that's the beauty of community, because you build communities of people that you could talk about certain things you may not post about. You may just have a whole group of people that y'all talk about those things. You may like aliens, you know what I'm saying? God, you know? So that's how I always looked at it. Like, if it's something like, you know, niche and I want to keep it for me, that's where you build I build a side community.
Yeah.
Have you guys posted something that you have regretted and then chose to take down?
That's a good question.
You know, or just decided, like, you know, where you post it and you're like, yeah, I think I'll take that one down.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was gonna say everybody, right?
Yeah.
Bring that up because I had said something about a musician back when I was in college. Everything goes back to college. I'm not gonna say what I said wasn't bad, but now because I'm pretty much in the same circle that he's in, you know, and I'm probably going to meet him, you know, at some
right.
You know, I thought to myself, you know what, I should probably go back and just take that down, even though it was years ago.
Yeah.
It could probably resurface at some point. So,
and that's that mindfulness. Yeah, that's that mindfulness you're talking about, of like even past things.
Well,
like, okay. Right.
I think that the challenge for cats like me is that balance between, like, just being yourself, but also realizing, like, it's your TV station, right? You're just like, this is my brand, like, I'm putting out there, right? And part of my brand is kind of being, like, kind of goofy and irreverent, and so you kind of have to, like, kind of tread that line between, like, hey, you know, do I want this around in another week or a month or 2 years from now? Do I want someone digging that shit up? You know, so that's a little tough to. But
I want to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was about to say that for me, I had a couple of posts that I had to take out, but at the same time, I have some others that it helps me to remind me how long and how hard I've been working and how grateful am I for having what I have right now. The other day I was checking just favors because I know I was looking for a picture, and I started, like, noticing, like, all the things that have happened in my life, and that made me think, like, I'm really lucky from what I've been through. And I have some pictures that I really don't like, but at the same time, like, I'm gonna keep them up because, you know, that remind me how, you know,
and that
in the process, right?
Yeah, and that's gold. That's gold. You know. Hey, I want to be cognizant of our time, and I want to talk about. I want to kind of start wrapping towards your feelings about the industry, and where it's going, and your hopefulness for it, the challenges that you see, and the things that are out there. And this is kind of, you know, segueing from the social media place into the business, you know, and what are your thoughts about where it's at and where it's going?
Where it's going, right?
Where it's, you know, What kind of hopeful things you see? What kind of challenges you see?
First.
Well,
I'll pick one.
well, I think, even though we're trying to segue, into a different topic, nowadays, I feel like it's still like so much connected to where a lot of artists that are blown up on social media starting to get a lot of plays in the radio, and then next thing you know, they start getting record deals and start performing all over the place. And I'm going to be honest, like a lot of artists in this situation, and not that great.
Tell us, like, yeah.
They're not that great, and so it can be very discouraging for people who have taken years and years to just study the craft and get better, and posting on social media and not really getting the same results. But I think as long as you continue to stick it out and also learn from these artists, being pushed, like what is it that they're doing right? So it's a learning journey.
You're talking about the gatekeepers, like where the gatekeepers have moved and shifted and made it more open and easy for people to create music and produce and publish. You don't have to be discovered by a big company. But at the same time, that means that anybody can go out there, and the channels of discernment of what's good and what's not have also just kind of washed away, right? So it's a free for all of the shiny object.
Yeah, it's muddy waters, but I'm extremely hopeful because, going back to the points before, if you are building something tangible and you're like feeding it, like I said, it don't matter if it's 2 or 2 million. If you're feeding those people and you're delivering it to them, it's going to continue to grow. And it's a journey, as a musician, it's a journey as a business professional. So at times it's the waters are so muddy, but when you realize it and like you just put yourself through that grind, you're like, what, we'll make it out the end, and whoever strong is always gonna last. And that's how it's like it's discouraging because of the hours spent and the time.
At
the same time, it's a beauty and a blessing because it's like I spent all this time, so once I get my things in whatever order I need or that person needs, add that knowledge with it, and it'll take you far. So it's just all times about patience.
Same thing. I'm with Lake. Like, it's being honest to your project is one of the most important things when you have a lot of challenges moving around. Especially one of the challenges that I see, like we have so many music releasing per day, which it makes it difficult for people to be like on the focus or being recognized by their music. But one of the advantages is like now we have access to so many tools that we can make music from our houses. We can go like, as we were right now, right? By via Zoom, we're able to talk and we're able to work and collaborate. But the thing that remains for me, it's being honest to your music, be grateful, and also keep pushing because you never know who's going to listen to your work. And that's the most important thing for me. Like, not making the things that I like let's say like playing right now, like in the main radio, but doing your thing is going to get to a point where someone appreciate it. And the most important thing for me is with all the challenges moving around, it's collaborate with people that you love, that you appreciate, like Lei, Harun, Michelle, Bob. And that's what is going to make everything easier, right? And
that'll never go away, right? I mean, that is like, and it's here. I mean, like I've listened to a ton of podcasts. This is my 3rd or 4th one I've done with Michelle now. That is the theme. That is the common through line with every conversation we've had. It's like, and some people call it their hustle, some people call it the grind. Just like, but doing it your love, being consistently showing up, using your community, and keep putting it out there, right? And like another friend of mine said, if you don't love doing it, then you shouldn't be doing it, right? If you're in this to make money, if you're in this like for something, to buy then go work for the post office, do something else. We're doing this because we love doing it, right? And then we're trying to figure out ways to optimize the process so we can get the most benefit from it. But that's not why we're doing it. So so I just I want to say amen to everything you guys are doing, and it gives me hope to keep to hear it because I do believe it too.
Yeah, me too. And I think when we hear Rick Beato talk on his YouTube channel about it, he talks about the talent that comes up from all of the young artists, you all included. There's so much amazing talent. and that it gives us like this just amazing energy and hope, of like, oh yes, this is continuing on, and we want to build that community. I want to end with, well, you can make a choice. I want to hear, like, what do you want to see for the future, for yourself, for the industry, for the community? Like, what are you working on? What do you want to see? What kind of advice? Because I feel like you've given advice right now. And as much as great advice you get from that community that we have of older people, you guys have such a voice and so much advice for younger people, but older people as well. But yeah, what do you see in the future for yourself and for the industry? Let's start with you, Harun. I'm going to put you on the spot.
I'm going to pick on you.
I definitely see myself, continuing to do what I'm doing now, but on a much more grander scale, of course.
Yeah.
And just working with more big names in the industry, and just continuing to progress just overall, like.
Yeah. And I feel like the studio is something that you do that expands. It's having a studio is so expansive for a creative community.
Right.
It's such a great project.
It's kind of genius, actually. It's kind of like basically a funnel, right? You just bring people in, mix it up, see what happens.
It's crazy. So
it's really clever. I gotta say, I have a lot of respect for you.
So the biggest reason as to why I have a studio is my mom. Yeah, she's the one that told me, hey, you should have a studio right after you graduate college. I'm like,
what?
If you're down,
right?
Go ahead and do it. Because, before that, I just saw myself just, playing drums and going on tour.
Sure.
And stuff like that. But yeah, to your point, what I have right now is I'm just able to expand and do so many things, with this. And, I never saw myself, having this, years ago. I just didn't. So
I love your mom.
I mean, there's your support.
Yeah.
She's great. Yeah. She's also an entrepreneur herself. She's a doctor. She owns her own clinical practice. So
great. Nice.
That's just her trying to raise up another generation of.
Oh man, smart. It's so good to hear.
That's amazing.
How about you, Lake?
To be honest, a continuation of a dream that started very young, and I'm so fortunate to be able to live continuously, and bringing as many people that are willing, because that's the thing.
Right.
You initially start, you want to bring all the homies, you want to do this, that, and the third, and you start realizing everybody doesn't see it that way, and that's a beautiful thing. So I'm at that point in life where everybody that's around me, I want to be there. I don't want you just to be there. So yeah, continuing with that, just growing, having fun, and showing kids that you could do this. You could do anything that you set your mind to, truly,
Yeah.
That's really what the goal is.
And you're going to be recording some more music?
Oh, my God.
Of course, lots.
Oh, man.
Both of these guys I have records with, multiple records with. Me and Juan just released a record back in November. It's called It Happens, featuring Destiny Pantrell. She's amazing. An artist. She's insane.
She's amazing.
Yeah, and me and Juan Juan presented the idea to me, and, I sat with him for a little while, and he'll tell you, we go back and forth creatively. It's a team, even with me as an artist. I'll show them the writing, and if they don't agree with it, or it's like, yo, you could be better here or sharper here, I'm all for it. I'm not the artist that you can't tell what to do.
Yeah.
And like, no, I'm here as a vessel. I want us to give the best thing that we could possibly, create.
That's awesome. Yes. That's wonderful. Yes. So you, Juan Carlos?
Well, for me, I see in myself keep learning stuff. I'm super nerd about learning new things. The cool thing about right now is like we know stuff in 1 month, but after 2 months, we have new tools that we have to learn, which is, I find amazing. At the same time, it's annoying, but at the same time, it's really cool.
Because it can be overwhelming, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's been like a mindset, like keep learning, because we never stop learning. We never stop knowing people.
Bingo. I'm pointing at you right now. You can't see that, but I'm pointing at your face right now. Bingo. What you said, never stop learning, right?
Yeah.
Stay curious.
Yeah, exactly. Being out of your comfort zone. So that's one of the things that I've been learning, and that have been helped me a lot to connect with people. Back in the day, I don't like to talk with people. Right now, I'm learning how to. So,
Same.
and those all those things has helped me to make what I really like, which is music, connecting, being in the community. And for me, I see myself doing that, saying yes to things that I don't know. Also, most of the time, 99% of the time when I say yes and I'm afraid of it, it ends up being something really good. So
I'm gonna overshare with you, Juan Carlos, for just a second. And I was talking to my therapist years ago, and I was talking about like just like I get so anxious around crowds and people, and it keeps me from doing what I want to do. And he told me his job was, I want to give you the tools so that you can move through the world the way you want to move. So you don't say no to things where maybe you could say yes, and something amazing could happen to you, and you don't want to miss it on that. So his whole thing was like, so if you're anxious, I want to work on that so that you can like talk to people and maybe do something you never dreamed you could have done before in your life, right? So that's like when you talk about learning new things, like that just like resonated in my soul, because I feel like even though I present, I'm the most reluctant extrovert you've ever met in your life, because I don't want to be extroverted, but I just keep finding myself in these situations where I'm talking to mobs of people. But it's a good thing at the end of the day, because I meet people like you, right? And it moves the community forward, and it improves lives, and that's all the good things that happen. So anyway,
it's also genuine. It's coming from a genuine place. And I want to say thank you to all three of you for showing up. And
what a treat.
Genuine.
What a gift.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Because I have my 13-year-old son who is so inspired by the music that you guys are doing and making, and I want to keep connecting all the generations like this and learning. So knowing that while you guys are in that learning mindset, so are we always. It never ends. And that I would always say this to my young designers: I need you guys. I learn as much from you as you might learn from me, if not more. As a martial arts teacher, I say the same thing. I learn more from my students than they'll ever learn from me. And it just constantly goes all directions. But you guys are all very inspirational. I love hearing your stories, and thank you for spending this time.
Billion%.
Thank you
to keep you young, man.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And we'll see you soon in the next gathering, eh?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Right, man.
You guys have a great evening.
You as well.
And
Right.
we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Right.
Take
Bye.
care.
Good night.
Adios.
Good night.
Good night.
You have been listening to UnStruktured, the podcast from Structure Society. If you enjoyed this episode, please download, share, like, subscribe, and add your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. Also, please consider a Substack paid subscription to help us bring even more meaningful content and connection points to you and our creator community. Here you'll find articles and news, as well as the podcast and additional content. We cannot grow without you. Thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.